Hello, Star Wars fans. Today we're going to be continuing to unpack the mystery of the Acolyte with the new information we learned in Episode 4. And man, what an episode it was. That final minute was insane. Now, there will obviously be spoilers, but as long as you're okay with that, then let's dive right in and see what we can find out. Don't forget, we have a June contest running all month long. Be a subscriber, leave a comment. You could win a book or a steelbook. Best of luck. And we have a membership option with lots of cool perks, so you might check that out to see if you're interested. All right, so this episode is mostly set on Kofar. There's a little bit on Coruscant, but for the most part, we're following Kelnacca, who's now a hermit, on Kofar, and he's been out of touch basically for the last year. And of course, we're going to learn ultimately his fate. In the meantime, we do learn that he's been making a lot of etchings on the walls. So what is this all about, right? It looks like yin and yang symbols, kind of like how Osha and May are the opposite sides. There may be force dyads even. But then there's these interesting images he made, which look exactly like the images we saw appear on May's forehead after the Ascension. So what does Kelnacca know about these? What was he studying? Did he talk to the other Jedi about it? So many questions. We really need the rest of the flashback on Brendok and that whole fire and what the Jedi learned from the witches. So yeah, lots more to be told there. All right, so I'm going to follow May and Kamir on their journey to reach Kelnacca, and I'm going to do all of their scenes at once because I really like doing a through line so we can keep a common thought going. Then I'll go to the Jedi and how they reach Kelnacca. So Kamir is, I think, testing Osha here to make sure Osha's still on task. Kamir says, your sister being alive doesn't change anything. So he's a little worried that maybe she's wavering because of Osha. He says, you made a deal. You need to kill the Wookiee. Very interesting. You made a deal. What's up with that? Here I thought that May was basically like an apprentice, an acolyte, with the master that wanted to learn, that this was a tighter relationship, not just a deal. So clearly May made the deal of I'll kill the 4 Jedi, but what was May going to get out of it then? I don't know. There's a lot to be learned about this relationship between the master and May. Interesting. And then I'm glad this question keeps coming up because I sure have this question in my mind. Kamir's like, how do you kill a Jedi without a weapon? I don't know. Tell me, Kamir, tell me. He says, well, regardless, you got to figure it out. You have to kill the Wookiee and you have to do it without a weapon. So yeah, I want to know the answer. I appreciate everybody in the comments that have thrown out your ideas and some have suggested maybe she has to learn how to do a force choke, since that's kind of using the dark side of the Force and it's not really a weapon. I mean, that's a good answer. There's lots of good answers, but I'm just glad they're still asking the question because I sure don't know. Then also, I thought this was interesting. May turns to Kamir and says, what kind of deal did you make with him? So she's assuming that Kamir has a deal also. Well, he says, well, we didn't really do a deal exactly. I owe him. You owe him? What does that mean? He says, how he likes to collect people. My word, it just gets stranger and stranger the more we learn about the master's relationship with folks like May and Kamir and whoever else is maybe an acolyte. Very, very interesting. All right, so then May turns and says, hey, I've never seen his face, have you? And of course, Kamir says, I haven't. So May, this is reinforcing that May does not know who the master is, right? Then I think this is interesting. We're seeing that May is really wanting to know more about Osha, but kind of playing coy. So May's like, I can't believe my sister is Jedi scum. But what was it like when you spoke to her? Right? You see what she's doing, right? It's like, I don't really care about her, but tell me about her nonetheless. So Kamir answers, well, she seemed really fond of that one Jedi master. Yeah, what was his name again? Sol? He's messing with her now, right? He's totally messing with her. Obviously, she knows who Sol is. Sol is on her hit list. He's one of the 4 she needs to kill. So yeah, definitely Kamir is messing with her and kind of basically saying, you shouldn't care about Osha because she's friends with the dude you're supposed to kill. So don't forget that. Very interesting. Then we're back to this question again. May brings it up and says, hey, attacking a defenseless person goes against everything the Jedi stands for. So how do you kill someone like that, unarmed? See, I feel so much better. Thank you, May. You're making me feel better that you don't know the answer because I sure don't know. I don't know where this is all going. But she says, I want to do it more than anything, but it's impossible. And by the way, if I don't do it, he'll kill me. So I think she's kind of deciding this deal isn't as good as she thought it was to begin with. This is, again, her wavering. I mean, they spend a couple days walking to Kelnacca's. So while we just see, 30 minutes of this episode, she spent a lot of time thinking about this. So ultimately, she decides, nope, I'm out, right? So she tricks Khmer, says, help, 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 and he comes running in and just bumbles and falls into this trap. Just like a total dunce. I really think he is playing her. It kind of reminds me of how Yoda played Luke at first, right? Remember, Yoda played like he was old and feeble and clueless, but he was doing it to learn, what are you thinking, Luke? Where's your mind right now? Where are you mentally? I think that's what Khmer's been doing with her. And he's got his answer now, right? He dug it out of her. She's changed her mind completely because she says, you were wrong. Osha being alive changes everything. And that is very interesting. So just the fact that she learns Osha is alive makes her decide, I'm done with the master. Well, think back to what we learned in episode 3 in the flashback. She literally said she's going to kill Osha, and she sets a fire to try to kill her. So that's why I'm saying she was under control here. I realize her eyes aren't complete black. Somebody left a great comment to me saying, oh, well, her eyes don't look like they did when Torben's eyes were taken over. I'm wondering if maybe the black starts to fade, but still, there's no way that now May cares about Osha and is willing to reject the master entirely if May was doing this intentionally. It just makes no sense. You try to kill your sister and then you're happy your sister's alive? No, doesn't make sense. So anyway, I'm pretty sure she was under control here. So she says, hey, that changes everything. My loyalty is to Osha, not your master, and I don't need to keep this deal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to surrender myself to Kelnacca and then turn myself into the Jedi. And of course, Khmer's like, no, stop, don't do that. But he says, the Jedi will put you in prison. And she says, not after I tell them who I know. Ooh, that's, in other words, the master. Doesn't know the identity of the master, but I'm still going to tell him everything I know. And then Khmer changes. His voice, his demeanor changes. He'll kill you. So there's no doubt. They are hinting pretty heavily in this episode that Khmer is the master. I mean, the master suddenly shows up on the same planet Khmer's at. Khmer was playing this idiot when we know he's not an idiot. I'd almost think it's almost too obvious that Khmer's the master, so I don't think he is, but they're sure playing it that way. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think Khmer is the master after this episode? All right, so we're going to leave May and Khmer for now, and we're going to head over to the Jedi. So we start by seeing the Jedi, Jecki and others, are all training with sticks, which is so much safer, I can never forget this scene, than in Phantom Menace. What was this all about? Yoda, are you crazy? You put hoods on the kids. They're like 6 years old, 4 years old, 3, I don't know, and you give them lightsabers. I really think the sticks are a better idea than the lightsabers. I'll never understand that scene. I'm assuming they were on stun. Can you have a stun setting on lightsabers? I guess. Anyway, nonetheless, I think this is interesting. Looks like there might be something between Osha and Jecki here, because Osha says the next time I'm on Coruscant, I'll look you up. And we'll go to a cantina and trade stories about Master Saul. And look at Jecki's smile. Very interesting. So we'll have to see if something's cooking here. Very, very, very cool. All right. Then, if you remember, the whole reason they're back on Coruscant is because Vernestra said, you got to come back. Do not go after May. Do not go to Kelnacca. You got to come back because we need to have some meaningful discussions, which I always thought was really sus, but I'll give them credit. They really do have meaningful discussions. In fact, look who shows up. Who saw this on their bingo card, right? Master Ki-Adi-Mundi. I did not even imagine he would show up. And that's from the credits. So we know that's who it is. They make it very clear that's who it is. So he says an apprentice who doesn't know their master? They're all really stunned by this. But of course, he's really familiar, right? You remember him from Phantom Menace. He's the one that said it's impossible that the Sith have returned because the Sith have been extinct for a millennium, which honestly has been one of the biggest concerns people have had with keeping the canon intact because if this guy is around the same time frame, how would he not know the Sith are around? Yoda was around during the Acolyte. We haven't seen him, but he's obviously around. How does he not know about these Sith? So I love the fact they doubled down and they literally put Ki-Adi-Mundi in the episode to go, oh, we're going to explain it. Don't worry. We're going to explain it. But I have heard some longtime Star Wars fans complain because in the now 25-year-old Star Wars Episode 1 Insider Guide, which came out on CD-ROM. That tells you how old this thing is. But in that, speaking of old, they give the age of Ki-Adi-Mundi as 70. 70 in Phantom Menace. Well, if Acolyte is 100 years before Phantom Menace, Ki-Adi-Mundi wouldn't even be born. So some fans have said, well, hey, you're messing with canon right there. How is this guy even alive? Well, one thing to keep in mind is when Disney bought Star Wars, they basically said all this stuff is legends, all of it. We're not going to deal with all this stuff that we didn't have anything to do with, including this Insider's Guide. So technically speaking, all this did is go against Legends material, not against Star Wars canon. There is no canon answer to what his age was in The Phantom Menace. But let me know your thoughts. Does this type of thing bother you? This would be kind of like in Marvel if they did something that contradicted one of the tie-in comics. Kind of like that, right? It's tie-in materials that are now they're going against. But nonetheless, the dude is clearly alive in the time frame of the Acolyte. So now they're trying to decide what is going on here. Is it a splinter order? Is it something worse? So they're trying to figure out what's going on. And the key is we need to make sure that particularly Ki-Adi-Mundi, but none of these folks can learn about the Sith, right? Because if they do, then we have problems in The Phantom Menace. So Vernestra says, well, obviously she was trained by one of our own. So they kind of solved the problem for now, right? Everybody seems to think it's a rogue Jedi that trained May. Okay, so we know why they don't think it's the Sith. Then Ki-Adi-Mundi says, hey, we got to alert the High Council, which would mean Yoda would be aware. And they're like, no, the High Council would be obliged to inform the Senate, and a scandal like this would inspire fear and mistrust, and we should handle this ourselves. We must learn who trained her. And you could tell that Mundi ain't happy. He's looking down like, all right. So again, at this point, I'm not worried about them messing with canon and that line from Phantom Menace because nobody here knows what's going on. They all think it's a Jedi. But how are they going to explain this by the end of the series? Because obviously they're going to know it's a Sith by the end of this episode, as we all know, right? So what are your guesses on how, is everybody just going to die? I mean, not this dude. He can't die. He's in Phantom Menace. But I mean, like everybody that learns about the Sith, are they all going to die? Are they going to be mind wiped? Boy, big question, right? Big question. All right, anyway. Vernestra is not too happy about the situation. She says, why didn't you tell me there was a chance this poor girl survived? But Soul sticks to his story. I saw her fall, and we saw that, right? No one could have survived that, so he really did think she died. But then Vernestra says, I fear May is only a small part of her master's larger plan. Something to tip the scales. So what does she mean by that? I mean, is she realizing it might be trying to tip the scales to the dark side? Because if so, then we're leaning towards Sith again, and they can't know about the Sith. So that was an interesting line, and I really do think Vernestra is sus. I'm not saying she's the master, but I'm still going to keep her on the list. I think she needs to stay on the list. All right, so then Soul decides to use Osha as bait. Now, he doesn't call it bait, but hey, it's bait. He says, I need you to come with me on this mission. And she's all excited. Wait, you want me to rejoin the Jedi? And he's like, not officially. She's like, oh, you need me so you can get to her. So yeah, she gets it. Ouch. But she's willing to do it, so that's awesome, and because she knows it may be the only way to get May out of this alive. So I give her credit for being willing to do it. So then they learn that the Order stationed Master Kelnacca on Kofar, but no one has heard from him in over a year. So that's interesting. I at first thought that Kelnacca ran to Kofar just to hide out, but no, he was actually stationed there, but then he kind of vanished. Okay. He's been unresponsive to our warning transmissions. So even when they're sending him the warning saying, look out, May's coming after you, he's not responding. And by the way, since we got this image up here, the dude on the left, there's been a lot of rumors on whether that is Plo Koon, because it's Plo Koon's race, and we all know that Filoni loves Plo Koon, but the Star Wars Twitter account responded to this guy who was asking, hey, is that Plo Koon? And they said, nope, the name is, I guess, Ithia Pan. Okay, bummer. So we've got to still keep watching for Plo Koon. The Plo Koon watch is still in effect. We have not yet seen him, so we'll see. Maybe he's going to show up in Acolyte or somewhere, because there's no way Filoni's not going to have him show up at some point. All right, anyway, searching for Kelnacca. So they learned from the locals that he ventured off into the forest and never came back. So he's basically, again, just become a hermit. But good news, they have a tracker. And yep, it's this little dude, Basil. Basil is his name. He smells, where did they get this thing anyway? I guess they just have some of Kelnacca's clothes or rags sitting around the headquarters. I don't know. Anyway, somewhere they find something of his and let the tracker smell it. Now here's what's cool. Remember I mentioned earlier some fans are upset because the Legends material that said Ki-Adi-Mundi, was only 70, that got overridden. That's bad, right? But they get some points for this because the 1979 book Han Solo's Revenge is also considered Legends, but it's the first time a Tynnan race, this guy, Basil's race, appeared. So the episode, decanonized one thing, but canonized something else because we finally get him in live action. So I don't know. Tell me your thoughts on it. Again, when this stuff is Legends, you have to kind of let it go. And then if they bring it back in, we celebrate. And if they contradict it, we go, oh, well. So anyway, very cool to see his race show up. All right, so, Osha, what are you doing? Never touch the strange creatures on the tree. Do we not all know this? So she does, nonetheless, and it wakes up a creature which, according to the closed credits, is an Umbra moth. And the key part being moth, because we're going to see that it is attracted to Sol's lightsaber when he draws it. And sure enough, he has to kill it. As they say, it went straight for the lightsaber. It's attracted to light. So I'm wondering if that's a hint towards maybe these creatures are going to show up again in a later episode, and the fact they're attracted to light is going to be a problem. I mean, maybe during the lightsaber duel that we saw at the end of this episode, maybe that's going to attract these creatures. I don't know. Or maybe it was just a one-time comment, but very interesting. But what's also interesting is, poor Osha says, I was able to sense that creature, so maybe she's getting her ability to commune with the Force back, but she says, I disturbed it and now it's dead. So she feels pretty bad. And then Jecki, I don't know that this was the best way to cheer somebody up. She's like, hey, it's always an honor to get to witness anything or anyone transform into the Force. Now, that's true. That sentiment has been said before, but still, if you just accidentally caused a creature to die, I don't know that that's going to cheer you up necessarily. But hold on, Jecki's going to have a really good statement in just a minute. So before that, though, Osha says, well, I could never accept a death like that as a true Jedi should. So I think we're going to learn here why Osha left the Jedi Order, because she just couldn't get her head around that. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Jecki's statement didn't really help her feel any better. And she said, I couldn't accept what I'd lost, her family and all, how unfair it felt, and the resentment that I felt for my sister, even though I missed her at the same time. So yeah, I think this answers the question, which was kind of a lingering question of why did she leave the Order? It was twofold. She could not accept, the death the way a Jedi should, and then also she had so much resentment and anger. So it goes back with what we learned in the first episode. A major concern about admitting you into the Order was your age, but also the fact you were mourning you lost your entire family. So, okay, I'm going to call that mystery solved. Yay, they did answer one piece of the mystery. But then this is great. Jecki makes up for the earlier statement and says, we are not defined by what we lose. We're defined by what we survive. Wow. I might give that the best statement, quote so far from all 4 episodes. That's powerful. I mean, what a way to look at life. We're not defined by what we lose, but we're defined by what we survive. Wow. Good stuff. All right, so then this is interesting. Sol has a discussion with Osha and says, you're not going to face May. You're going to face your past. Both of us will. And then, oh my, do you not know, Sol, this is not what you're supposed to say in a murder mystery. He says, once we get May safely to the ship, I'll explain everything, right? Every time somebody says that, after XYZ happens, I'll explain everything. What does that mean? It normally means you're going to die. It's just like in a horror movie when you say, I'll be right back, right? You're going to die. Well, in a murder mystery, never say, in just a minute, I'll explain everything. I am really worried for Sol now. Ooh, yikes. Anyway, May then, back to May, she finds Kelnacca, and Kelnacca is very freshly dead. I mean, that lightsaber wound, there is literally smoke coming off of it. It was moments ago. Crazy. And May realizes he's here. So she's inside, while outside, he, the master, does arrive. And boy, does he look cool and menacing. Look at that mask. Gosh, it's so creepy. So then Osha happens to be closest to the Sith Master, staring him right in the face, or her. They keep saying him, I think, maybe to throw us off. It could be a her. But anyway, that is such a cool shot, with the red lightsaber lighting up both their faces. Oh, my word. So then Sol shouts out, Osha, run, trying to get her out of there. And then, I love that, he just flicks, and Osha goes flying away. Just a flick of the finger. And then turns towards the Jedi with another flick. And a wave of the hand, and boom, the Jedi just go flying away. Oh my gosh, the dust even goes flying away. And yeah, they're just absolutely, he wiped the floor with them. My word. And then it fades to black, and you're like, oh, come on, come on. So they have really set us up for the next episode. I cannot wait. Cannot wait. All right, so let's quickly review if there's any changes to these 12 open questions. I'm not going to read all the questions. We're going to look if there's any changes. So there is one. Question number 2 was, how is the Sith Master tied in with May? Well, now we know. It's a deal. But really, we still have a question. Okay, so what's the deal? How did this happen? How did May meet the Master? Why did they come up with this deal? So unfortunately, the question isn't answered, but it just changed. This one, however, though, is answered. Number 10, why did Osha leave the Jedi Order? I think we know now, right? It was the resentment. It was her age, several factors, but I don't think that's a mystery anymore. We'll get rid of that one. However, I do think we now have 4 candidates, Mother Corell, Mother Anastasia, Camille, and Vernestra, that could all be the Master. Any one of those I could see turning out. They all are sus. We have to assume maybe, and it could even be somebody else from the Coven, for that matter. So anybody that didn't die in the Coven, and of course that very sus-looking Camille and Vernestra as well. So that question didn't change, but I'm curious if you have any thoughts at this point. Who do you think the Master is? Are you leaning towards Camille or somebody else? Then I think we do need to add this question. Why is it that the Jedi don't know about the return of the Sith when the Phantom Menace happens in 32 BBY, since it seems pretty clear they're going to learn about the Sith in this series? I'm confident they're not going to break canon and they're going to give us an answer, but the question is, what is the answer? How are they going to solve this? So, yeah, man, 12 questions. We really need these answered. We've had the first 4 episodes. We've got 4 left. Come on, don't let us down. I want every one of these answered, darn it. Okay, remember, June contest. Be a subscriber, leave a comment, win a book or a steelbook. And of course, there's that membership option in case you're interested in that. And we have a Discord, 1,400 members across the globe, conversations 24/7. And here we are talking Acolyte spoilers. Everybody's trying to figure out, is that Plo Koon or is it not? Who's the Master, etc. Lots of good discussion. We would love to have you join us. I will leave a pinned comment so you can be part of the conversation. Also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we will all eagerly await the next episode of The Acolyte.